Welcome everyone to the webinar. It's good to see everyone here. We're going to talk about anxiety today, and we're going to talk about hopefully having a little bit more freedom from it, if possible. And I know that's a lofty goal, but we'll see what we can do here. So first, let me just introduce myself. For those who don't know me very well, my name is Jill Whalen. And let me give you a little bit about my background. For 18 or so years, I was a pioneer in the SEO industry, search engine optimization, helping people get their websites in good order so that they could be found by people and Google and that kind of thing. So I did that for a long time. I was in the industry before. There really was an industry. It wasn't even called SEO when I started back in '95. So I was doing that. I had my own company going along perfectly happy, really happy, loved doing it, making tons of money. I lived and breathed SEO. I knew it inside out. And so that was great. In my personal life was pretty good. I've been married. Been married over 30 years, 33 now. Have 3 adult children. Everything was going along nicely for me. But back in 2013, I was really realized I was really putting on a lot of weight. I was drinking a lot. My husband and I, once our kids got older, we were going to our local bar down the street often and eating there, not so healthy foods, and drinking more and more. We started out going for 1 drink, and then soon, we'd be 3 drinks later or whatever it was. But anyway, I was gaining weight and also, reaching a certain age, as you women on the call here know, sometimes you just gain weight. But anyway, I just finally decided I was not a person who ever dieted throughout their life. I didn't, I always thought just eat good food or just eat just eat moderately and you'll be fine, because I was fairly thin growing up. So, but at this point I said, all right, I got to do something. And I thought about it for a few years before I really decided to do something. But then I started to lose weight. I did it the old fashioned way, counting calories, using, well, it wasn't so old fashioned because I used the MyFitnessPal, the app, and I had what do you call it, the Fitbit band. And that really helped. And I got interested in eating more healthy and in exercising, and started to really it changed my perspective on things, because I wasn't doing it as a diet. I was doing it as a lifestyle change. And it became interesting because my perspective just started changing about everything in life. I started to see how I was becoming a different person. Not only was I getting smaller in weight, losing the weight, but I was getting more fit, but my whole understanding on life was changing. I was realizing I can change. How can I be one day I hate vegetables, let's say, which I did. I never ate vegetables. And, within a certain amount of time, suddenly I loved vegetables and I loved exercising. I used to say I was allergic to exercise. And, so it was interesting to just see like how that could happen, that I could kind of see that there wasn't a fixed me, not a fixed personality, which was pretty interesting, because we really, we label ourselves and think of ourselves as a certain way. I was a mother, a wife, an SEO consultant, and who hated exercise and vegetables. And now I was something else. I was still the other things, but not, but I liked new stuff. So that was cool, and that was interesting to me. And I started to sort of explore that more, getting into sort of spiritual stuff and reading psychology stuff, and started to really just learn a lot of interesting things in that. And at some point, which was really weird, I sort of was just getting really tired of doing my SEO work, and that was really weird to me, because, like I said, I loved it. I mean, it was my passion. I had a lot of passion for it. And I didn't think I would ever not be interested in it anymore. And it started sort of slow, where I just didn't feel like writing my newsletter anymore. I had written my SEO newsletter every other week for since the year 2000. So it had been, I guess at that point, 13 years of writing it. And I was like, I've said everything. There's nothing left to say. I just don't even want to do this anymore. And so I skipped the newsletter that week. And I thought, well, I'll still be doing my SEO work, but just maybe not the newsletter, which was weird because my newsletter was my way of really getting business. And then like throughout the next week, I just realized, you know what, I don't even want to do this SEO stuff anymore. And that was like, you're kidding, like why? You're making all this money. Why would you just not want to do it? But my mindset had changed so much that I just, I don't know, I was just so interested. I just liked going walking in the woods and, and cooking healthy vegetables and things like that. So I just sort of lost the interest. And so I literally just basically, quit right then and there. I had some client stuff I had to finish up over the next month or two. But the way my stuff was set up, most of what I did were a lot of one-off things. So I was able to just drop it for the most part and get out of it and just start, I was lucky too, because we had money saved up because I was making a good amount of money. My husband makes decent money. So money wasn't really the issue, although looking back on it, it was really bad timing. If I had thought a little bit about it, I probably would have waited a year, because at the time my son still had a year of college left, and my daughter was getting married that year, which was very expensive. So it was kind of dumb, but I wasn't going with my intellect. I was going with what I thought was, my inner guide telling me, which had served me pretty well up to that point. So anyway, that's sort of my story. The next couple years, I spent really digging more into spiritual stuff, psychology stuff, and really have learned so many things that have just changed my life completely. And the main things, well, it's called the 3 principles, but that doesn't really matter. We're not really going to talk about that too much today. And I know some people on the call are familiar with it. But the things I've learned have really changed my life, and especially as it relates to anxiety. Now, I didn't even know I was an anxious person. I mean, I knew I would get anxious at certain times, but I didn't know that I was kind of anxious a lot, like all the time. Like I had this sort of constant anxiety going through me. I was obviously a functional anxious person. I was able to do stuff I had to do in life, but I didn't realize until I started really paying attention to what was going on in my mind and looking at my thoughts and stuff, that how anxious I really was. And it was kind of interesting, because I've also learned since then how everybody else in the world is really anxious too. And it seems like, because we're all going through all this anxiety in our lives, that we're always looking for things to make us feel better. And for me, that was alcohol was one of the things I did to make me feel better, which a lot of people do. And it keeps you kind of calm. A couple of drinks, and suddenly that anxious feeling goes away. So that worked. But I was feeling crappy drinking too much too, and that was part of putting on weight and things like that. Waking up in the morning with headaches and so it's really wasn't the best way to deal with anxiety. And I also learned just other coping mechanisms that I had been using. But anyway, I'll talk probably a little bit more about that and my story and what happened as we go through this and later on. But let me get into more about anxiety itself and what it is and that kind of stuff. And so people here, and I'm sure the fact that you're on this webinar, you've probably experienced anxiety. I mean, obviously everyone has. But if you think about it a little bit, what if you weren't anxious? What would it mean to you? Like, how would it change your life? I've found for me, it makes it so I can just can do things that I wouldn't have done before because anxiety would stop me. You know, you get scared. No, I don't want to do that. That's too scary. So for me, it's really changed my life because I'm able to do things that I never would have done before. As an example, karaoke. I always loved to sing as a kid, loved it, but I would never, not as a kid, not as an adult, sing in public. Never. It was a lifelong, scary fear for me for some reason, even though I knew I could actually carry a tune. And I used to sing with my friends and stuff when I was little, but sing in public, no way. But now I like tonight, in fact, there's karaoke at our local bar. I'm going to be singing there, and I've been singing for the past year or so, and I love it, and it's so fun and so freeing. But I just did it because I realized that, you know, who cares? Just do it. Actually, it was my daughter, my oldest daughter, who loves karaoke, and she told, you know, I would say, I wish I could do it. You know, I love watching you do it. It's so cool. And she's like, well, just do it. What do you care? And I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, just do it. And so I did, you know, I sang with her the first time, and I'm like, oh, this wasn't so bad. And then I was able to do it a bit by myself. And, you know, that was sort of my start. That was before I really understood what anxiety was, but I started to see that anxiety wasn't fixed at that point. Which was, you know, that was sort of planted a seed in my head that, you know, if I could sing in public, then really anything's possible, which is kind of cool. So, you know, it's really, well, we'll talk more about that stuff too. So I just want you to sort of think about that, how it would change your own life as you're listening to me, and what a simple sort of aha moment might do to if it could erase your anxiety. How would that feel for you? And that's kind of how it happened for me in a big time. So let's talk a bit about what anxiety actually is. It's the anxiety is really the uncomfortable feelings that we get that are caused by unconscious or conscious thoughts that happen to us. It's that feeling. You know the feeling if you've ever had anxiety, and it manifests by thoughts come into your head that are immediately followed by a feeling, and it's so immediate you don't even, you know, you don't even realize it. You don't realize that there's a thought attached to it because it just boom, it just happens. So for you, think about what sort of feelings do you have when you're anxious or fearful, because that it manifests differently for different people. You know, how do you even know when you're anxious? What do you feel? Some people get like a heart pounding. I get that a lot, or you know, headaches. You feel all the blood rush to your head, things like that. And you know, feel free to put in the chat anything. You know, how it manifests for you. The more you're thinking about this kind of stuff, I think, or you know, it's as you're listening to it, it can hit home for you as well. So, what causes anxiety? It's really just a matter of us perceiving something as scary. What happens is we think something's scary. Chemicals flood through our body and cause that anxious feeling, that, you know, the muscles tightening. Bobette said, you know, her muscles get tight, and yep, that's, you know, but that's the chemicals that flood in our body, and it's just because we perceive something as scary that causes that to happen. So what we notice generally when that happens is we notice the feelings, not really the thoughts. Most of the time we don't even realize there's thoughts associated with it. And that's a key point here, which we'll keep coming back to. So it's because it seems like that the cause of the anxiety is the event that happened that caused it. We think, you know, because I got to speak in public, I get scared and my heart starts racing. It's speaking in public is a scary feeling. Singing karaoke is a scary event. So that's what we think it is. But what are we really scared of? You know, what happens is it's our conditioned thoughts. A lot of times, stuff that's happened over time, Something once made us scared, a long time ago even, could be when we were a kid, it could be any time. It made us scared once, and then, so now forevermore, we somehow have to be scared about it. And what happens is we hit this thing in our head, when this happens, I get anxious. And, that just keeps happening over and over to us. When I have to sing karaoke, I'm going to be scared. When I have to speak in public, I'm going to be scared. If I see a spider, I'm going to be scared. And that just becomes sort of part of who we are, or we think it does. But here's the kicker. What's perceived as scary to one person isn't necessarily scary to another. And I think, everyone can kind of agree with that. Some people sing in public, don't care, don't get scared, doesn't bother them. But someone else, that's their deathly fear. They're never going to do it. Some people can speak in public, same thing. Some people will let spiders crawl all over their arms, and other people would rather pretty much die, or would scream or whatever. It's when you look at it that way, and you see how why it can't be the spider that's causing fear, right? Because not everyone's scared of it. It can't be the karaoke that's causing me fear, because not everybody's scared of it. So if you start to look at it that way, you start to see that events and things can't cause anxiety. And that starts to open up a whole new world, which is kind of cool. It takes a while to get it, because it definitely feels like it's those things causing it. So why do we even have anxiety then? That's often the next question people ask. And it does serve a purpose. Body preservation is the main one. It stops, if you get a quick jolt of anxiety, and you're going to run out into the street, or your kid's about to run out in the street, let's say, and you get scared, your adrenaline kicks in, all those chemicals, it helps you grab the kid fast so nothing happens to them. And there's all kinds of reasons why we need it for that, but it's not meant to be an all day thing all the time happening in your body. It has its purpose, but unfortunately in today's world it has less of a purpose. It's also there, it's preserving our ego, which isn't necessarily a good thing, because we get all kinds of psychological fears, because our ego doesn't want to get hurt. And so we get anxious because we just get afraid of anything. Psychological fears, what will people think of me, stuff like that. I mean, those are huge reasons why people don't do stuff, because they're so worried about what other people are thinking, which is kind of interesting, like why we care. I guess there's probably cultural and evolutionary reasons why it keeps society sort of moving smoothly. If everybody kind of tries to do the same thing and be like other people, then there's maybe there's some evolutionary goodness there, but it causes so much psychological bad stuff that's not good these days, in the way that people just get so scared of what other people will think, and they won't do anything. It's scary. We can have hundreds of crazy thoughts all day long about other people and what they're thinking, and guess what? They're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves and what other people are thinking about them. It also causes a lot of anxiety, causes a lot of physical problems, because what happens with anxiety is that adrenaline kicks in, and whatever other chemicals happen, and this I've read a lot and seen a lot of actual doctors talking about this, that what happens is those chemicals shut down our immune system, because they're designed to be a quick hit, like a lion's chasing you. So it shuts down your immune system, and then you're able to do what you need to do, and then you calm down and your immune system kicks back in and everything is good. But in today's society, because we're all running around anxious all the time, our immune systems are at this low level of really shut down. And then all kinds of physical things happen to us, you know, including things like cancer and heart disease and autoimmune disorders and all kinds of stuff that probably have their roots in anxiety. A lot of these things do, and I'm not blaming anyone for having these things, but when you have a low immune system, you're going to get sick. It's, you know, that's the way things work. So people have coping strategies. A lot of us have learned all kinds of coping strategies throughout the years to help deal with anxiety, which I'm sure I had, because I didn't even know I was anxious. You know, some people just ignore it and plow through it, and you know, that can work. All kinds of addictions. That was me. I was the addictive personality. All kinds of addictions to make me feel better. Always seeking how to feel better by things outside of myself. Alcohol, other people, had friendships. Trying to. I had addictive friendships where, you know, I would attach myself to one best friend kind of thing, and you know, that would make me feel better until it didn't. You know, when they were nice to me and when we got along, everything was great, and then suddenly things wouldn't be so good. We do also relaxation techniques and prescription drugs, and just avoiding the things that make us anxious. But all of these things are temporary measures. Even relaxation techniques, yeah, they relax you at the time, and that's great. But what happens later when something happens, you know, suddenly you're not relaxed anymore. And the same with the drugs. They can stop those chemicals flooding, but they don't really stop the thoughts from coming that are causing the anxiety to begin with. So they're just temporary, but there is really a better way. What I've learned, and you know, it's easier actually, and it's more permanent. It's a permanent way to cope with anxiety, and hardly anybody knows it, which is really kind of interesting and kind of cool. And it's also why I've been wanting to share with people, because it's just amazing. It's amazing that the whole world just doesn't understand how anxiety works. Anyway, remember we said that anxiety is the feeling that comes instantaneously after a thought, and as a result of a thought. So let's talk a little bit about thought, because that's the key here. Thoughts come and go through our heads, and you'll know that if you've ever tried to meditate and you're trying to not think, and you're trying to be quiet, and you actually see thoughts popping in, coming. Lots of thoughts keep coming. Some go away, some you kind of start thinking about more. They just keep coming. You really have no control over them. It seems like prior conditioning can trigger certain thoughts at certain times, but really the prior conditioning is also just thought as well, because just because something once made us anxious doesn't mean it has to forevermore. So we think, one time that bee stung us, let's say, when we were 5, and so forevermore now, you see bees and you're scared to death because that happened once to you. But again, it's just a thought. Just because that happened to you once doesn't mean forevermore. It's got to keep happening. And what's the missing piece here that a lot of people don't see is that it's actually a peaceful mind. That's our natural state, just calm and peaceful. Now that doesn't seem like it for sure in most of our lives. We're so busy running around doing stuff that peacefulness does not feel at all like the default. But think of it like, I'm sure a lot of you have heard the analogy of a snow globe. If you think about a snow globe shaking all up, that's our brains on anxiety. That's our minds on anxiety or any other kind of crazy emotions and stuff. But eventually you put the snow globe down, settles down, and no snow's in there, no all that. And it's the same with our brains. You don't have those thought storms. When you're caught up and scared in anxiety, if you pay any attention at all to your thoughts, you just feel them swarming like bees in your head. Just craziness in there. But eventually, when whatever happens passes, you feel that calm and that peace, and that really is our natural state. It does feel like outside circumstances can disturb our peace. Your spouse asks you to do something just when you sat down and ready to relax. I mean, that damn person is disturbing my peace. I mean, I get that. I feel that myself. But they can't really do that. When everything settles down, peace is always there. It's just our thoughts about that disturbance or whatever. So what seems like an outside disturbance to our peace is really just the thoughts about the situation, the thoughts that, oh, here I go again. I was just about to sit down and relax, and now he wants something from me. It's the thoughts about it, but it's not that situation itself. Because what if you didn't care, that you were happy to help, or when they asked you to do something, or whatever it might be. It's not the situation itself, because it could be, depending on your mood, you could react in a different way. Let's say you have little kids and they're looking for lunch. Let's say they're hungry, but if you're not ready to make them lunch, you're in the middle of something, you're going to be disturbed by it, perhaps, and you're going to feel like, oh, these kids, they're always wanting stuff from me. Another time, you may be perfectly happy, and you might be looking at those kids saying, oh, I'm so happy I have these healthy kids that like to eat and want to have lunch. And so it can be different at any time. So just remember that it's not the situation itself that's causing the peacefulness to subside, or that's causing anxiety to come. And again, I think I mentioned this before, we know it's thought because it's not everyone is scared of the same situation. So it's not only are you not always scared by the same situations, but not everybody else is either. Like, look at, what if you thought there was a bug on you, and so you get that anxious feeling, the anxiety comes, and then you realize, oh, it was just a piece of thread or a piece of lint or something on my clothes. And then you think you were scared of the bug, let's say, if it was a bug, but are you scared of a piece of lint? Is it the lint that made you scared? It can't. Lint's not going to make you scared. Lint can't hurt you. So when you start to see it like that, you can start to see a little more how the situation isn't the thing causing you, ruining your peace. And so anxiety is just thought. It's you don't have to hold on to any particular one. You're not really forced to hold any particular thought. There's no rules that say, when this happens, I have to be anxious. Just because it's always been that way for you doesn't mean it has to continue to be that way for you. There's no rules. There's no rules about it. It's not written in stone that has to happen. It feels like it. I'm not gonna lie. It feels like it a lot of times, but there's no rule about it. And the good news is that all thoughts come and go. They come and go. They're coming up. They're gone. They come up. They're gone. So anxious thoughts come. Happy thoughts come. Sad thoughts come. Angry thoughts come. They come and they go. I don't think you've ever, while we do feel like we're anxious a lot of the times, even the most anxious of people have calm times. Those thoughts come and go. We don't even notice. Sometimes we don't even know that we're anxious because it just seems normal, but it's still just thoughts coming and going. So if you can remember that anxiousness isn't your default, that peacefulness is, that really helps. Knowing, grabbing, anxious people, or someone who might label themselves as anxious, they're really just people who sort of grab onto those anxious thoughts more than other people. We all get them, and even though I've conquered a lot of my anxiety, I still get anxious thoughts. I'm not gonna lie, they come all the time. But because I know they're just thoughts and that they come and go, it doesn't bother me as much. I am able to just ignore them. What it is if you're anxious and you continue to be anxious, you sort of give meaning to those thoughts. Because if they're just thoughts to begin with, they have no meaning in and of themselves. They're like, what is thought? It's just nothingness. Nothingness, right? It's just energy or whatever. And so it doesn't have anything till we put a meaning on it. So yeah, we get these anxious thoughts. If we give it meaning, we'll be anxious. We'll feel all those chemicals will come into our body. We'll feel the anxiety. If we don't give it meaning, they'll probably just go away and we just ignore it. We don't have to give it meaning, which is kind of cool. So just knowing this can be really helpful. Oftentimes just knowing this will give you an insight into your own anxiety. Like just knowing it intellectually doesn't always help. But over time, you may start to pay more attention and realize you're not as anxious, or you may get a big insight that can really help. And it's not about now, the next thing people are going to say is, well, all right, if I just change my thoughts, then that should help, right? But it's not even a question of purposely trying to change your thoughts, because or even purposely trying to not grab onto anxious thoughts. Have you ever tried that? Try not thinking of something, see how that goes. I want you all right now to not think of a purple bear. Did that, you guys all not thinking about it? You can see how well that works. So, try to tell yourself, I'm not going to think about these anxious thoughts. I'm not going to pay attention to them, and see how that works. It doesn't work. It just puts more thought on top of thought and creates more anxiety, really, because then you say, well, why isn't this working? And then you get anxious about that, and it goes on and on and on and on. But when you can see anxiety for what it is, when you really know at the core of your being that it's always just coming from your own thoughts that are made up of this nothingness, so you give it meaning, they really do start to fall away over time, because they're nothing, right? They're nothing. So they kind of have to go away when there's no meaning to them. They got nowhere to go. I find too that thoughts in general are like cockroaches. When you look at them, they sort of scatter, they disappear. I find that a lot, which can also be helpful. So let's see, if you know it's just thought, you're still going to be anxious. Like I said, I still get anxious in certain situations. It just doesn't bother me in the same way. And there's still certain things that are left behind me. Health issues kind of stuff, something that might be wrong with any of my kids, or stuff like that I can still get anxious about, for sure. But I'm able to sort of watch it as it happens in my head, and I know I'm getting anxious, and I know I'm getting caught up in thoughts, and I know that, like for instance, my middle daughter, who's 26, but she has Asperger's, and she went off to LA by herself a few weeks back to go to a conference, VidCon, and I was really worried about her, because she's never really traveled by herself too much. She has a little bit. But she was going by herself, staying in a hotel by herself. She had to catch a cab, all the kinds of things that, as far as I know, she's never really done herself. And so while she was gone, I was worried. And then it hit me, all this worry about her. Every time I've been worried about these kinds of things, like if someone's late and and I don't know where they are, and I think for sure they must be in a car accident. It's never, ever come true. Nobody's ever been in a car accident when I've been worried about them being late. It could happen. Nothing's ever happened to my kids when they traveled alone. They really do have their own wisdom, even though we don't always believe it. And when I realized that, I probably had a million worry thoughts in my life, and as far as I could remember, not one of them has ever happened. I thought, well, that's really silly. I'm putting myself in all this anxiety for no reason at all, because first of all, there's nothing I can do anyway. She's, thousands of miles away. But what I'm wrong. I'm never right about this stuff. So why am I concerned about this? And I think worry is sort of another is a form of anxiety as well. And when I made that sort of insight at that time, I like my anxiety and my worry for her just dropped. More things happened later that week that made me worried again. But I did see it with a little bit new perspective. So it does help, you know, knowing this stuff can help. It can make it fall away because it's not made of anything. And so things maybe don't bother us the same way. You know, a lot of times we're just scared of being scared. You know, we're not even scared of the event. We're scared of the feeling of being scared because it doesn't feel very good. So knowing it's just thought, you know, in time, you'll have fewer situations, or at least I do. I have fewer situations that make me anxious. And something that's kind of an interesting thing to ponder, and I heard this at a retreat, Jenny and Rudy Kennard's retreat in the UK that I was at in May. They were talking about being comfortable with the uncomfortableness, which is quite a paradox. Because if you're uncomfortable, how do you be comfortable with that? But I started really sitting with that, and I thought that's really what it is. That's what it's all about. Because what happens to me often now, I could just be sitting around reading a book or watching a video or doing whatever, and I'll notice like my heart starts pounding fast, and I'll be like, that's weird, because that's like a symptom of anxiety for me. And at first, when that would happen, I'd be like, well, okay, let's see, what was I thinking of? And I'll chase back the thought, and I'll find, oh, I was wondering if my husband was going to come home from work in a bad mood or something like that, and you know, I have to deal with that crap. And now I've learned, when I feel that anxiety, if I'm just sitting around doing nothing, oh, I must be thinking anxious thoughts, and I don't even try to chase down what they are. Which is really helpful. Then they just go away, because I just like, oh, my heart's beating fast, must be thinking something anxious, whatever, okay, who cares, and move on, it goes away. It's kind of cool when you can start to do that. And I think that's sort of being comfortable with the uncomfortableness, for me, at least. So, you know, when you're feeling anxious, if you start to notice it like that, and just notice what maybe caused the feeling at first, you know, just do this so you can start to see that it is just thought. If you start to do that, you'll start to realize that it is just thought, and then look at, you know, is there a reason why I need to pay attention to this thought or to this feeling? Do you need to? I mean, is there something you need to do that will help the situation? And sometimes there is, and if there is, then do it, you know. But most of the time, our anxiety isn't, it's just made up stuff that really doesn't need attention. And if that's the case, just don't give it any, you know. So, you know, something you can do is reflect on when you've gotten anxious. You know, what are the thoughts you've had that are associated with those feelings? And look at, you know, whether there's a good reason to hold on to them, or are they just based on past conditioning and thoughts you've had in the past that no longer really are serving you? Do you need to keep them? In the long run, when you do this a little bit, when you start understanding this, really, it's nothing to do. It's just sort of understanding it, seeing it for thought. You may, again, like I do, you know, you notice the feelings, but you have no need to chase those thoughts anymore, and you just move on. And it's quite amazing indeed. And really, how it played out for me was I had an insight that I had been listening to some stuff about addictions, actually, some 3 principles videos about addictions, and I didn't, you know, I didn't think that I had any addictions, or, you know, and I kind of didn't even want to listen to those ones, but I was listening to all different videos. And the more I was listening to these addictions ones, I realized that everything in life, like so much of what people do in life, is based on addictions. It just really hit me that so much of what we do is an addiction to feel better, like, because we're so much seeking to feel better, seeking happiness somewhere outside of ourselves. And I started seeing that more and more. I was listening to actually one of the bornhappy.co coaching sessions that they were talking to this woman. It was about financial freedom of all things. And I wasn't even going to listen to it because I'm like, I don't care about the financial freedom. But what I heard in that podcast was addiction. This woman who was spending all her money, and so she was looking for financial freedom, was because she would have this shopping addiction, and there was so much going on. And I started to see how much of things that I did were addictions. And I had this epiphany in the shower one day, and I saw in a flash, it was like my life flashed before my eyes, which was weird because I thought you had to die for that to happen. But my life flashed before my eyes, and I saw all the like addictive relationships that I had, and it just, I saw it all as addiction, and I saw it all as me seeking to feel better by looking at things outside of myself. And it occurred to me that if the way I feel is based on thoughts, and thoughts are all inside of me, that I didn't need anything outside of me to make me feel better, that my thoughts could make me feel better or worse, depending. And I just saw it all. And at that point, I like drinking. I was, I like to have my few drinks. Even when I was losing weight, I would still make sure I had enough calories to put my couple of drinks in there. And, I've been drinking since I was 14, basically. And now I have no desire. I still drink. I still have a glass of wine a night, almost every night. I don't care if I do or don't. But what I don't want is, I don't even want that feeling of getting buzzed that I used to crave. That feeling of getting buzzed just calmed me so much before. Now, because my head is so much clearer, just knowing this stuff has made my head clearer for most of the time, until I get into some kind of thought storm about anxiety or something, that I don't want the feeling of alcohol. And even if I am in a anxious state, worrying about one of my kids or whatever, I still don't want to go for the alcohol, which is interesting because that used to be my go-to thing. And if I get in that feeling, I think, oh, okay, I need a glass of wine, and I don't anymore. And I don't. If I even drink my glass of wine too fast, I start to feel that buzz feeling. I don't like it. I stop. I give the rest of it to my husband or whatever. I don't. It's so hard to explain how that could be. And anyone who knew me in the past would, knows that that's crazy, because I liked my alcohol. It made me feel better. And I wouldn't say I was an alcoholic, but it definitely, I liked my alcohol. So that's how it played out for me in a big way, is not seeking other things. I had an addictive personality overall for everything. That it's what made me successful in my old business, because I focused all my energies and time on that because I loved it. But I'm hoping that in the future I'll keep not having an addictive personality. So how about you guys? How has anxiety played out in your life? Can you see at all how it's related to thought, especially people who are new to this understanding that might be on here? And does anyone have any questions? Now, we may have some here. I'm going to look in the chat. I've been just talking and not looking at this. So let's see what we got here. I see people who talked about some of their anxious feelings, what they get. Lori had chocolate cravings, and Babette has shoulders tighten and gets headaches in the back of her head. Everything tightens up. Oh, and she wants to eat everything. Yes. So does anyone have any questions? You're welcome to type them into the chat. Let me see if anyone's, I don't think I have any other people trying to chat with me. Let's see here. Let's see. No, I don't see any. If anyone wants to come on, let me know. Oops, what was that? Anybody? Anyone have questions? Type them into chat. Okay, Lori says, I have specific work anxiety. Whenever people want me to do something I've never done, even though I know I'm capable of doing it and would be good at it. Lori, would you be willing to come on and talk? Or are you, I don't know if you're, would you be willing to come on the mic? You could just say yes or no. I can just unmute your mic. Do you have a mic? Okay, I'm gonna unmute you. Okay, you're unmuted.
Hey there.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for asking. I've had my own business for almost 30 years. I've had to reinvent myself 400 million times, more so in the last 3 years than ever before, because I am in a very similar industry to the one that you used to be in, not SEO, but digital marketing. And have people that work for me, so there's a lot of, I'm not just performing for me, but I have to take care of the people that work for me. And what if nobody ever buys anything from me ever again? What if I never make a sale ever again? What if? So there's all that, which, over 30 years you get good at dealing with. But one of the things that I decided to do this year was up-level my client base to go from smaller companies that I've been working with to much larger companies. And one of those, put it out in the universe and it happens. We now have a chance at a $24 million project, and I can barely breathe when I think about it. So this was a perfect timing call for me. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's just doing something I've never done before, but it's the same thing I've always done. It's just got more zeros on the end.
Yeah, and that's a great way to look at it. Does looking at it that way keep you a little more calm?
It keeps me calm in my head, but I've noticed that the first, so I have a salesperson who found this opportunity, and she's great. She'll talk to anybody. I'm much more of an introvert. So she had me sit in on the call, and I was not adding my usual value to the call, that because I was sort of not breathing. And so after the call, I said, how did you think that went? Thinking she was going to say, what was wrong with you? Why did you act like that? But she was so wrapped up with her own thoughts about what was going on that she didn't even notice that I wasn't talking. And I have since, I have a good team of people, and I've put them on the call, and I haven't put myself back in the situation. So I'm waiting until the opportunity gets a little bit further along and kind of letting them do all the work. That's how I've handled it, which is like a complete non-handling. But they're not recognizing that that's what I'm doing. So I don't know if that's helping or not. I mean, it's calming.
That sounds like it is handling it. It sounds like, you put your faith and trust in them. Presumably you're trusting that they know what they're doing, and maybe your wrist is telling you that that's, you don't need to be involved at this stage.
Yeah, I do trust them, and I do think they're capable of handling it. They do want my expertise, and I am going to have to get involved at some point. But I'm hoping that things will be a little bit more manageable in terms of seeing how they put this opportunity together for this potential client, which will make me feel comfortable, because it is doing the same things that we've always done. It's just at a bigger scale.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that will make me less anxious about it.
Yeah. And have you ever found that, when you're on client calls, which are the ones that usually work out the best for you?
The ones that I don't have to think too much about, where I don't have so much invested in. For this one, this could totally change the company that I own. This one is so big that it will have a very long-term effect on, I'm going to have to hire more people. I'm going to have to be more available for meetings. I'm going to have to give up a lot of the freedom that I've had for not having such a big company, and that's a little scary. And so, just like you decided one day you didn't want to do your business anymore, I don't feel like I have the luxury right now to say to my salesperson, especially, you know what, I don't want to work that hard, so we're not going to do this deal. I can't do that to her because she really, really wants it. And so as a result, I have to man up and say, okay, whatever we need to do to support you with this account, hire more people, have more deadlines, get a project manager, do all the things that I've spent the last few years kind of undoing to make my life simpler.
Yeah.
So I'm not resentful about it. I just feel that that's what's necessary, and that, maybe what that means is that then I can fire some of my other clients who are more pains in the neck. I have a few of those. So it would give us more freedom to run the business in other ways, because we would have, we can go down this rabbit hole, but, then the other thing I worry about is we've had one hit wonder clients in the past where you don't want all your eggs in one basket either. That's a different kind of anxiety.
Yeah. But so you've got all these thoughts going on, obviously, that you just labeled, named. You have all these thoughts about this going on, about this, getting this client that that's all future stuff. That,
Right.
Isn't happening now. Yeah. Can you trust that, that worry about this for now, don't worry about do what you need to do to get the client, and don't even, that's the future. That's, that can unfold in its own way.
Yeah. Do you have a quote for that we can put on a t-shirt or something and just wear it all the time? Because I think you're right. I think worrying about all the future things that gets you kind of spinning out of control.
It does, and it's when anytime, so much of our pain and anxiety is about future stuff. It's thought about thought. And so, that's not happening. That's not happening now, and it's never going to happen if you don't get the job. Not to put any pressure on.
Right. Then we have other worries.
Yeah. But it's, the more you can keep the peaceful mind, and just do what needs to be done in the moment, and letting your wisdom guide you that way, letting the path unfold one step at a time. It will fall into place. You'll know what to do. When you look at, it's like a big project. I could never, even in school as a kid, if I had a project to do that was a big project, I couldn't do them. I didn't know how. It was too big for me, and I didn't know how to just do it step by step, and my parents wouldn't help me, so I just wouldn't do them. But my whole life was like that, where I would get so overwhelmed by big things, until I started to learn, don't look at the big things. I was always one that didn't really set goals because of that, because I would just see this big giant project ahead if I set a goal. But if you don't, you can have that goal out there, but don't really look at it and all the things you have to do. Just, there's baby steps along the way, that at every moment you just do what needs to be done at that moment, and that baby step, and things get done, and they get done a lot faster and a lot easier because there's less effort. You don't have all those thoughts going on in your head about all the future stuff that may or may not come down the line. So my quote would be just baby steps that you can hang up on the wall. To me, that's kind of the key, letting your wisdom unfold, and tell you every day what you need to do next, or not every day, but every moment even. And if you start to see that it sounds like, you do see that it's thoughts, and it's future thoughts too, that, you don't even know, you don't know what's going to be in the future. So it's not serving you. It's not serving you to think about it. It's not serving you. It's not going to help you get the job, and it's not going to even help you move forward and do all the things that you will eventually need to do if you get the job. I do like your realizing that it's same thing as getting a smaller client only with more zeros. I mean, that's it. That's all it is. That's all it is right now, let's say. Okay, I'm going to mute you back up if you're not already. Is there anybody else? We're coming up on time here. Is there anyone else who has a question or a comment? You can type it in or unmute yourself if you know how, or I can unmute you. I hope this was somewhat valuable to people. Renata says baby steps, which will eventually know how to walk along the path of life. I like that. Yes. Yes. I find that helps. If you watch some of my kayak videos, I seem to talk about that a lot on YouTube. All right. Well, if nobody else has anything to say, I think we'll end here and right about an hour. And I thank you all for coming. I hope it was helpful. Please, if you want to contact me at Jill at whatdidyouDoWithJill.com, because people all don't recognize me anymore. So that's my blog. You can please sign up for my newsletter if you're not already on it, so you can be notified directly of any things like this going on, and just, you know, read the articles or whatever else. And you can catch me on Facebook, which probably most of you already are. And I will catch you all next time. Thanks. Bye.